Hey y'all! Well, we're here for the budget preamp shootout. So first let me go over the test criteria or the setup that we used. We picked all these preamps that all sell for around $80 to $90. They're all under $100 on Amazon. All available today. Well, this one's not, I don't think, anymore. This is the OG FX Audio that has no tone controls. So this was kind of the control unit for these cheap preamps. We use these to drive a pair of 2A3 monoblocks that have fairly low input sensitivity that really do need a preamp with a little bit of gain to drive them. And as you can see, no volume controls. These were designed to be used with a preamp. And not just a device that's like a volume control or a tube buffer. It needs to have a little bit of gain. Not a ton, but it needs a little bit. Like from a DAC straight into these, using the volume control on the DAC, like the Topping E70, just isn't enough. Doesn't have enough output. Like the Blue Sound node straight into these just doesn't have enough oomph to drive these. And for the source, we're using a restored Akai GX4000D reel-to-reel DAC, tape DAC, so that we've got a pure analog sound that is capable of outputting into something that possibly has lower impedance, and didn't want to have the problem with the turntable and my tube preamp that might struggle with a lower impedance source, and I just didn't even want to get into that. And you know, you can look up the impedance and all these things, but that tape deck can easily drive a solid state amp, so that's not going to be an issue. And then we chose this as the amplifier because it's got a really high impedance input, so that anything should be able to drive these and not struggle. So we were basically wanting a setup that was very repeatable, which tape is. That was an analog source, so we don't have any question about, oh, what kind of op amps do you have in the, DAC that you're using, and who are you streaming it from? All that's off the table. And we used a song by Natalie Merchant, Beloved Wife, which has a really good intro. It's got some very rich piano acoustics. There's some really delicate cymbal action going on. There's a really sharp kind of tap, 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 tap percussion thing along with the drums. There's a smooth bass. And then, of course, there's her voice. And the key things I was listening for was a detail preserved both on that sharp percussion. The bass rolls in nice and smooth, that we can hear those delicate cymbal, and the decay on those was nice. And then, of course, does her voice sound natural? Or does it sound boosted in some weird way where, it's easy for her voice to get shrill if the stuff isn't working like it's supposed to. And the Akai deck has enough output as well to run these monoblocks to listening levels without a preamp, so I could hear what it sounded like with no preamp, and then what it sounded like with the preamp in the system, and how much gain that they have by how much I could turn down the output on the tape deck with these at full volume. And then see if there was some issue with the tone changing when you went from partial volume, like if I drove these hot and then turned the volume down, versus the other way if there was a tonal shift in that direction. So let's start down on this end with the little Aiyima T1. It is a Bluetooth input, which obviously we weren't using. It's got a sub out, also wasn't using that. And this unit has a tone defeat switch, which is nice. And then this other switch controls whether you're doing RCA or Bluetooth. And the T6 has more stuff inside it. It's got Bluetooth and a USB input with some sort of DAC inside it. This one does not have a tone defeat, but it has a headphone jack. And we didn't test the headphone output. That's for another video. This one, we're just testing these being used as a preamp in a system that you need one. And then finally, we have the Fosi P3, which has Bluetooth, again, which we didn't use. There's no USB. It's just got a pair of RCA jacks on or 4 RCA jacks on the back. It's also got tone controls on each side of the volume control, but they have a center detent, which this one doesn't have. So you have to just kind of make sure the knob's in the right place and then center it. All three of these come with a 5532 op amp. The T6 has a D suffix, this one has a P suffix, and this one has no suffix. And these two have 4 op amps, and this one has 3. These two have removable or replaceable op amps, which we didn't do because I wanted to have them all on an even playing field and just listen to what the electronics with the same op amp sounds like. Okay? So, let's start with this one down here. First thing I don't care for is it's got bright blue LEDs under the tubes. Like, what are they trying to make them look like they're blue glowing or something? I don't get what that's about. And of the 3 units that we're reviewing today, this one had the most smearing going on. And it was obvious to me that there was a degradation in the sound quality when you went from just the raw input from the reel-to-reel deck into these monoblocks versus putting this in the signal path. And I did play around with rolling tubes in all of these. I'll cover that right now too. And honestly didn't notice a huge difference. I mean, the individual preamp might change a little bit, but it wasn't like, oh, changing the tubes brought this one to this level or this level. It wasn't that deal. So the tubes weren't what was causing what I was hearing. And to me, this little guy, even with the tone defeat, just, I can't recommend it. I was not happy with the way this one sounded. And when you turned off the tone defeat and started adding EQ into it, the EQ just didn't sound very natural, especially with her voice. I mean, like I could give it a little more bass and then her voice would sound kind of gravelly and weird. And then if I gave it some treble trying to pick up the high end, the same thing happened. Then her voice got shifted up. And then the main thing was like this tapping percussion just sounded, it wasn't crisp. Okay, so there's the T1. We're going to put it over there. Okay, so now we have the T6. And again, this is the RCA. This is processing the analog signal. I didn't, not doing Bluetooth, not doing USB. We're talking just analog signal processing. Now this one is more attractive, and it's got like some orange LEDs that aren't near as bright as the ones in this preamp, but it suffers the same audio degradation that I heard with this T1, just maybe not on as big a level. And again, the EQ knobs just didn't have a natural sound to them. And you guys that follow the channel probably know I'm not a fan of EQing an analog signal. It always just ends up sounding funky to me. And this one had the same kind of smearing going on with the really fast, that really sharp kind of staccato percussion kind of, it's almost like castanet kind of a sound, or it might be the drumsticks hitting the edge of the drum. It's got that really sharp kind of sound which is a good way to listen for smearing. It's one of the reasons I picked that song for this demo. I mean, sometimes I use all kinds of different songs for different things, but I knew what I was listening for on this, and that song really does a good job. Also, this one, the bass response wasn't there. I mean, it definitely pulled some out of the bass. Unless I turned on the EQ and then cranked in some bass, and as I said earlier, it started kind of sounding funky. So, this T6, not happy with it either. The Fosi P3. Now we're starting to get into something that sounds actually pretty good. And this one was noticeably sharper and crisper sounding than these two. And it had a nice bass response. And this is something I could see using in a budget audio system where you need a preamp. Is it as good as a $1,000 preamp? No. And we'll get into that in the next video when we're going to be reviewing the Sparkos Gemini and my color preamp versus the winner of this, $80 shootout. So then we get to the little FX Audio OG. And again, this is the one with no tone controls. It's just got a volume control and a couple of tubes. And to me, it was kind of a toss-up between these two. They both sound really nice. And then the difference between these two starts getting into, okay, what tubes are in it? And you can start hearing a difference in the tubes. Fosi claims that they're using the tubes for the amplification, or they're part of the gain, and they're not just a tube buffer. And that may be the difference in what I'm hearing in these three, that these two are just, cathode follower, tube buffer type implementation of a tube and a preamp, and all the gains being done with the electronic solid state stuff, where this one more the gains being done in the tube itself. Now, did they sound better than this being driven directly from the tape deck? There was a little bit of quality loss, but I know, again, I'm one of those folks that's like, the less crap you put in the signal path, the better it's going to sound. But these monoblocks, you're going to have to put something because it needs a little more gain. That's the other thing too, is both of these had a noticeable amount more gain than these two do. And these seem to be designed more for probably softening up a solid state amp. Again, I'm using these really nice 2A3 monoblocks that have a really nice smooth sound to them. If you've got some, lower tier class D amp that's got, just too edgy, these might bring something to the party. But for what I was testing with, this P3 definitely was a step above these two, especially being at the same price point. So that kind of wraps up this budget preamp shootout. And I'm declaring the winner, this Fosi P3. And we're going to get into another preamp shootout with this versus the higher end stuff. And we're going to go into, what that can do. Again, remember, these you could swap in like some Sparkos op amps, and they might bring these to this level or surpass it. But then you're talking about putting, $160 worth of op amps into an $80 preamp, and then you're over $300. And so, I think I'm doing the math right. $250 anyway. So if you want to stay under $100, pick up this little Fosi P3. Below I'm going to put non-affiliate and affiliate links to these. If you found the video useful and you'd like to help the channel out, use the affiliate link. If you think that it's problematic for YouTube reviewers to be hyping stuff for affiliate links, hey, I'm not doing this for that. And so if you think that's what's going on, feel free to use the non-affiliate link. It's not going to kill me either way. So anyway, hope you've enjoyed this little video. If you did, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. I appreciate all you Patreon supporters, you regular viewers, and I hope this helped some of you out that may be in the market for one of these budget preamps for, if you got like those Fosi mono blocks. We're going to be reviewing those soon, that you got to have some way of controlling the volume, that this little Fosi P3 is the way to go. So, till the next video, have a nice day.